Stairs. Okay. Okay. Okay, d'accord. No worries. I'll explain it to you. Okay. No, I just, yeah. I don't know. What do you do now? That's a good question. Okay. You have to do exactly what I say when I say it. Go to the home button and hit on it twice, like tac tac.
Home button is what?
Home button is the big round button in the middle of the screen, Dad.
On the middle of the screen?
The iPad. You're looking at the iPad, right?
Okay, I just see a red button in the middle of the screen.
No, Dad, you understand what I mean. The big button that you press to go home, the home button, the big button that you press with your thumb in the middle of the bottom of the iPad.
Oh, okay, at the very bottom. Okay.
So you hit on it twice really fast, tac tac, like you double click a mouse.
Yeah.
Okay, tell me what you see.
I see Zoom.
Okay,
Right.
no, that's enough. You go to Zoom with your finger, your index finger, and you swipe Zoom up so that it disappears from the screen.
Zoom is up now.
Zoom is out?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Now, press the home button once more.
I'm back to the original screen.
You're back to the original screen. Now click on Zoom, open Zoom.
Where is Zoom now?
You have to find it. It might be on the second screen.
Yeah, it's fine.
What do you see when you open Zoom?
Well, new meeting, join, schedule, share screen.
Okay, no, that's not one. Let me just put the video and show me your screen. Take your phone, look at your phone, please. Okay, now you see the bottom on the bottom of the screen there that has a camera with 2 arrows on the phone? The phone. Put your finger on the screen. Put your finger on the screen. There's a red button, and underneath it, there's a camera avec une barre. And then to the left of that, there's a camera with a circle on it. There's 3 gray icons on the bottom. 3 gray icons. You see them? Press on the left one. Okay, now point your camera at your computer. Okay, and back it up a little bit. Back it up. No, I can't see anything. I said back it up. Okay, doesn't matter. Okay, wait. Go back. Up, home, go to home. Click on home. I can't see anything. Can you show me the screen, please?
It doesn't do anything in the home, okay?
Okay. Can you move out? I don't see anything. I can't see anything. I just see. Okay, no, go to where it says SZ. Hit that with your finger. Dad, you're not helping. There's something there. You have to be able to log out.
But before I got this image was something else that is a screen that came before this one that disappeared quickly, and this one came on.
Yeah. You didn't press anything?
No, it just went back quickly.
Dad, l'écran est noir. Can you please?
The join is the one that's the big one that's the join. Is the one that
Oh, did you press on join?
I didn't do it. Join.
No. Okay, let me just hold on. Yeah, just do the same thing again. Double click on the home button and quit. Do the same thing that we did before. Double click and swipe up to quit out of Zoom. Okay, now just wait a minute. I'm on my iPad. I'm going to do the same thing as you, just to see what the difference is. Zoom. When you click on Zoom, you want to go to sign in. Okay. Okay. So, oh, hold on. Okay, click on the bottom. On the bottom, there's a gearbox. Une petite roulette de réglage, settings. Click on settings. Okay, when that opens, go to the top, go to Suzy Zein. Click on Suzy Zein, yeah. Then on the very bottom, go to sign out. Okay, now sign in. No, sign in. Sign in. Google. Click on Google. Click on Google. Yeah. Continue. Continue. Okay, now, utilisez un autre compte. Okay, now put your email, kamal.zein. How do you do what? Yeah, it's an iPad. When you touch it, the keyboard appears. No, I know. I'm doing it, Dad. I know exactly what account you're using. Just kamal.zein. That's all you need to enter. And then you press next. And then you enter your 1947, Jeanne 1947. Okay, then you enter the password for your email, whatever it is. I don't know that, just the password. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Move the camera up to the top so I can read what it says. Yeah, that's perfect. Okay, great. Okay, now go to my email and click on the link that I sent you this morning that we tested. No, on iPad. Dad, I sent it to mom's email address. Listen, press the home button, and then go to email and click on the link.
Zoom link, Violetta Zein.
Yeah.
Oh, shit, just okay. I got you.
And it's just gonna straight open back that window. Join with video. Yes, join with video, yes.
Right now there.
Yeah, you're there. Okay, so now I'm gonna do something. Listen, I have to do something important today, okay? So pay attention. Yes.
Call using
Yes. You should hear me now. Okay. You're still muted.
Okay.
Okay, c'est bon. So listen, look at your screen. Something is going to pop up on your screen. Look at your Zoom screen.
My Zoom screen. My face or the screen? You have been assigned as co-host of the meeting.
Okay. Now, on the bottom of your screen,
Yeah.
you touch the bottom of your screen and click on participants.
I don't see participants. I see a black screen.
Touch your screen.
Okay, yeah.
Now
Okay.
do you see participants?
Yeah.
Okay. Touch participants.
Okay.
Okay, now look at what's going to happen in a minute here. I'm going to join with my phone, and you're going to see a person in the waiting room. You're going to have to admit them, okay? So let me show you. This is what I do when you're in the meetings, but I'm not feeling well today, so I'm not sure I'll be able to do this.
If you can do it, because I don't know if I can handle this.
Yeah. So hold on. Let me just show you what it's going to look like. Storytelling. It's very easy, Dad. All you hit on the button is admit, and you're going to be looking at the screen. So it's just very easy. All you do is admit. There's no one you don't admit.
I don't see anybody.
Yeah, because I'm having trouble. But can you see anything now?
No, I see participants. Kamal, Zein, co-host,
Look.
Violetta. I see two Violettas.
Oh, never mind. Cancel.
I see John Yasuda.
Oh, okay, admit. And then I'm going to stop talking because I can't talk. So.
But I don't see him on the screen here.
Lila. He's right there, Dad.
Where? I don't see him.
He's at. You don't?
Well, unless this participant's screen is hiding him.
Okay, let me think. You might be on the wrong setting. Touch your screen and see if you can see gallery view.
I don't see him there.
Okay, touch your screen.
You and I.
Just touch your screen.
Yeah.
And see if you can see gallery view.
Okay.
Yeah, hit that.
Hit what?
Gallery view.
Oh yeah, switch to gallery view.
Yeah. There you go. Now can you see something better?
Yeah, I see John Yasuda.
Okay, good. I'm so
But
happy.
he's muted though.
Yeah.
Aloha, John.
Hello. I'm calling from Orange County. Am I way too early for this?
Not way.
Start?
Like if you don't mind waiting around for 15 minutes, but I was just troubleshooting with Dad because Dad is in France and I'm in Congo, and this is the first time my father is doing this on his own.
Oh my gosh!
An iPad, and it's like so much technology. You know how it is. So I was walking through him all these little technical things. Well, we're done now. So.
Oh, where in France, sir, are you zooming from?
I'm zooming from Chartres.
Chartres.
100 kilometers.
I've been to Chartres.
You have?
You have?
Yeah.
Wow. I don't see you, John. I see you. I see a drawing. Wow. You're
Here I
Wilmette or
am.
what? I see Wilmette behind you. Are you Wilmette or is this just a picture?
No, it's just a picture. I
got
just
you.
got, yes. Are there a lot of Baha'is in France or?
In France, yeah. I mean, in different cities.
Oh, wow.
But in Chartres, there's a, we've been here for many years. I mean, we come in and out.
Wow.
Juliet is writing me.
Yes, I believe.
Dad, all we see is your ear. Can you please look in the middle of the screen? The iPad is like to the right and your face is to the left. All we see is your ear.
It's okay, that's okay. I'm talking to John right now.
There you go. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God, you did it right. I can't believe it.
It's okay, I'm talking to John. John is listening to me because I'm trying to focus on what he's saying, not on my face. John doesn't care. John doesn't care for my face.
John is much nicer than I am, Dad.
Yeah, well, the thing is, I'm focusing. So, trying to answer your question, John. Yeah, we've lived here years ago, like way back when I was studying in the US, and I came to do my last year of studies at the French University in Tours, which is close by. I was a member of the assembly in Tours, and we just 10 Baha'is. Many of them were Persians. And then back in '75, when I came back, I was still studying in the US and came back to finish my degree here in Paris, was a member of one of the assemblies in Paris with my wife. And then we were pioneering in Corsica. So we have a long story with this country way back when you're doing teaching with American and French and all that. And there are small communities, across France. But in Chartres, there's nobody. There's only a lady whose father met Abdu'l-Bahá.
Oh,
but she is not really Baha'i as such. I don't think she really understands the faith. But her father he was from Syria, and he met Abdu'l-Bahá in Egypt, and I think he wrote something. So she's attached to her father and to Abdu'l-Bahá as such.
Oh, wow.
But there's nobody. There's very close Baha'is here in Rambouillet. It's a train station between here and Paris. And there's scattered.
Doesn't that have an old cathedral right in the middle of the city that it was under reconstruction over many decades? It was it went through, I believe that was, I had a friend who lived in Paris, and
you mean the Cathedral of Chartres itself? Yeah. Actually, our house is just very close to the cathedral. I mean, we are surrounded by churches here. Like there's one about 100 meters from the house.
Wow.
Saint-Aignan, and then if I turn left and I go about 400 meters, there's the major cathedral that has the most beautiful, gorgeous windows. What do you call them? Those
those stained glass windows.
Stained glass windows. Yeah. It's very famous, and this place is full of churches.
Yes, and it's got like little creeks along the throughout the towns, and
yes, down below what they call La Ville Basse.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
you should come and visit. You've been here before. Right? You were here before, right?
Yes.
Wow.
I went. Yes, I visited my friend, but in Paris. But we went to Chartres once, and we were only there for like a weekend, kind of. And
right.
It's a beautiful, beautiful country, beautiful cities, and wow, it's so picturesque.
I'm telling you, when we were visiting, we've been living and traveling in France for a long time. My wife is French, of course. And one day when we came, we were going to Bretagne. We stopped here, and we took this train, this tourist train. And the tourist train started up at the cathedral level and went down. And then when it went down by the river down below, which is called La Ville Basse, when I discovered that there were 2 levels, you know, we get so excited about the city that we decided to buy here.
Wow.
It's like it's the only place in France where I would live. Like I know the whole country, but I would not buy because it's close to Paris and it's very photogenic, you know, and has all these cathedrals and so we got an apartment down below, right there, that my daughter uses, and I haven't seen yet. I've been here 3 days. I haven't had a chance to even open the doors. And this house is very small, but it's like on 3 levels, very tiny.
Wow.
And it's by Église Saint-Aignan, which is just around the corner. And it's just full of churches here, and it's just a nice place.
Yeah.
But usually when I come here, I tend to go west. I go to Bretagne. I was there yesterday. I went to see the city of Roscoff,
Wow.
which is by the sea. You know, that's where you just stop to go to England. Yeah, and it's just a wonderful place. It's where they have the Onion Festival. It's the onion capital of France.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's known for that. Yeah, and I spent 1 night there, and I went to Morlaix, and then I came back quickly here. I just have to do that visit. I just love seeing the sea, and it's just gorgeous.
Yeah. Wow.
Wonderful. And where are you now in California?
I'm in Orange County, Southern California, like near the same county where Disneyland is at.
Oh, yeah. David Menham just came in. I had to welcome him. Sorry, I just not.
Oh, it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, I'm not used to managing these participants. Welcome, David. How are you? David is there. Yeah. Anyway, so I don't even know what time it is. This is French time. Yeah, it's about 6 minutes to 5. Yeah, in France. So at least France is not in real lockdown because we were able to move. We started moving on the 15th, so I came just in time. Whereas England and Italy, they're closing.
What's the story with this new, more viral strain of COVID?
It's in England.
Yeah.
We have to unmute David. Yeah, it's in England. Hello, David. How are you?
Hello. Fine,
welcome.
thank you.
Welcome, David. Yeah.
Bonsoir.
So apparently, bonsoir, cher ami. Yeah, England is they have found this train, and they even got a passenger that landed in Holland that has it. So Holland blocked all flights from England.
Wow. Yeah, I heard that went into effect this morning, actually.
Yeah. So they're scared because it's very contagious, but they don't know how harmful it is. So Italy and England and Germany maybe, but this place is still okay. You're able to move.
Oh, good. I heard the vaccine is it's effective regardless of mutation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that was comforting news because of the technology that Pfizer and Moderna uses, and so I hope it comes out soon.
Well, that's what they're using in England, right?
Right, and also,
the US too. Yeah.
Yeah. But only the frontline workers get it now, and
I see.
It's not available for public. But
sorry. Yes, and here's the story. I have to admit, I think my wife is coming. Hi, Susie. So my wife is here now in Congo. Hello, Susie.
Wow.
How are you? She's muted.
Bonsoir.
Bonsoir, Susie. We're going to speak in French. I think everybody wants to speak French tonight.
Oui.
David, how is your French?
Very bad.
Oh my God! So we can't use it.
Yeah.
2 years is not enough.
2 years. 2 years living in France, or 2 years?
No, 2 years at school. Yeah.
Oh, I got you, sir. Yeah. Oh, and there's Madame Rahmanian is there. Wonderful.
Hello, Pa. Good morning.
Hello. Oh, wow. You sound like you're next door.
Yeah, I am next door.
Yes, I'm in France right now, so
I'm in
closer
Southern
to you.
California.
Yeah, I just came to France
Ah.
yesterday. Yeah, 2 days ago.
Mavash,
Yes.
do you have any relatives in Austria?
They keep asking me that, but Rahmanian is my late husband's last name. My own last name is Wajdani, yeah. But
Because we have a number of
we are Sangisari,
Rahmanians
so
here.
whoever is Sangisari and Rahmanian, yeah, why not?
They had a carpet shop.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Then they must be my relative. I don't know.
He's just died recently,
Oh,
but the widow is still here and the children.
what was
The
his first
children-
name?
It's a long time since I met this family,
Okay.
so I
Okay.
have to look it up
Right, no
if you
problem.
really want
no
to
problem.
know. Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's a very common name. You know.
Okay.
I mean, are there many Rahmanians?
There are, but then they are from different parts of Iran.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
yeah,
No
my
problem.
family is from the northeast,
Right.
from the Khorasan province, from that area.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
All right, you guys, we're here. We wait a few more minutes, and then if somebody can say a prayer, it would be nice. My daughter is not joining us right this second, so I am the host. I'm trying to click on people, participants,
back
as
in
they
2
appear.
minutes.
Okay, David. So we're gonna wait a few more seconds. There's another person joining us. Suzy, ça va? Okay. SPCC 2020. I don't know who that person is. And John is there, and Violetta is there, and Mahvash is there, Susie is there.
John is in Chicago.
John is in, who's John? Oh, no, John is, no, he's not. He's just, he has the temple behind him, yeah. No, he's in Orange County, I guess, he says.
See, he's in House of Worship.
Yeah, I know.
Hi, Mamash.
Hi, good morning.
I just have to keep an eye here on participants. Click on, everybody's, okay. I don't want to miss anybody. So, we have two friends that aren't going to be able to be here today. They're attending another Zoom. They are both Sudabe and Fariba. But anyway. we'll
Is
see
this
them
a
next
1 hour Zoom or 2 hours?
This one?
Uh-huh.
This as long as you can stay. I mean, I'm going to be continuing with Juliet Thompson because this party is very exciting. So I'll probably do an hour.
Okay.
Maximum.
Because
Yeah,
at 10
think
o'clock I have a LSA meeting I gotta attend.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, we don't want you don't want to miss that. We'll do
Yeah.
an hour.
Okay.
We'll just go slow on this one, and then
Okay.
we'll finish with Juliet next week.
All
I've
right.
been staying too long with Juliet, but Juliet is the only person I know that really describes Abdu'l-Bahá in great detail. Nobody does.
Yeah.
I don't care who you read. You can read
Yeah.
anybody. Yeah, nobody does. She's a painter, and she just describes. You know, I could read this book like every day, and I won't get tired. So Abdu'l-Bahá is very much alive, and we're assuming that everything she's saying is right, correct? I mean,
Right.
she's not. Otherwise, it would not have been published or approved or kept in circulation. So, Mahvash, can you say a short prayer for us, please?
Of
If you
course.
have, in Persian or in Arabic or in English, whatever you choose,
Why don't I do in English?
if you like.
Yeah.
So we'll try to do this time just an hour. No, we're not going to go beyond it. That way, next week we can continue when the others join us.
I mean, you guys can continue, but I just didn't want to be rude and get out
No,
of
no,
pocket
no, 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 no. This
without
is free.
letting you know.
No, this is free. But we just do an hour this time. I think it's best. And then next week we just continue with this story. I even put my stopwatch so I can watch myself. Go ahead. Anytime you're ready.
Okay. O thou whose face is the object of my adoration, whose beauty is my sanctuary, whose habitation is my goal, whose praise is my hope, whose providence is my companion, whose love is the cause of my being, whose mention is my solace, whose nearness is my desire, whose presence is my dearest wish and highest aspiration. I entreat thee not to withhold from me the things thou didst ordain for the chosen ones amongst thy servants. Supply me then with the good of this world and of the next. Thou truly art the King of all men. There is no God but thee, the ever forgiving, the most generous.
All right. I hope I can read and you can see me and I don't show my forehead too much. Sorry, I have a tough time reading and looking at the screen. So, again, we are back in June of 1912. Now, the funny thing about this is a century later, and we are in the middle of this virus business, this COVID, which is paralyzing the world. But again, 1912. Nobody, I guess, knew that there was a world war coming in 1914, Nobody had any idea that after this period here, a couple of years later, World War would just attack Europe. You couldn't tell. So again, we go from major crisis to major crisis. And here we are, confined, and we don't know how many months or years are going to be confined. Who knows? Who knows what that calamity is that was prophesied? There's no telling. Just as back in 1912, Abdu'l-Bahá spoke of peace all the time. Nobody was listening, really. But then again, war broke once and then broke in 39 again. So we'll stick with those days, Abdu'l-Bahá, when Juliet Thompson was trying very hard to paint Abdu'l-Bahá, right? So we are in this. There's two interesting things happening here. One is the story of the painting that he allowed her to do, and something else that happened in the presence of Lua Getzinger. So again, as I said, we're going to do just one little hour, and we'll continue next week. I just put my stopwatch so I can stop. So this is writing in June 5th, 1912. The master has begun to pose for me. He had said, "Can you paint me in a half hour?" "A half hour, my lord," I stammered, appalled. "I can never finish a head in less than 2 weeks." "Well, I will give you 3 half hours. You mustn't waste my time, Juliet." He told me to come to him Saturday morning, June 1st at 7:30. Now she's writing, this is 4 days later. I went in a panic. He was waiting for me in the entrance hall, a small space in the English basement where the light, not much of it, comes from the south. This is I guess it's a building, and then there's 2 floors, and one of them is called the English basement. In fact, I found myself faced with every kind of handicap. I always paint standing, but now I was obliged to sit, jammed so close to the window because of the lack of distance between the master and me that I couldn't even lean back. No light, no room, and I brought a canvas for a life-sized head. The master was seated in a dark corner, his black abba melting into the background, and again I saw him as the face of God and quailed. How could I paint the face of God? I want you, he said, to paint my servitude to God. Oh, my Lord, I cried. Only the Holy Spirit could paint your servitude to God. No human hand could do it. Pray for me, or I am lost. I implore you, inspire me. I would pray, he answered, and as you are doing this only for the sake of God, you will be inspired. I have to admit somebody else in Jali. Sorry, because I'm now in the control tower here. Welcome, Jali. Yes, Annie. Welcome, welcome. Welcome, Jali. How are you? So, I will repeat the sentence. He says, I want you, he said, to paint my servitude to God. Oh, my Lord, I cried, only the Holy Spirit could paint your servitude to God. No human hand could do it. Pray for me, or I'm lost. I implore you, inspire me. I will pray, he answered. And as you're doing this only for the sake of God, you will be inspired. And then an amazing thing happened. All fear fell away from me, and it was as though someone else saw through my eyes, worked through my hand. All the points, all the planes in that matchless face were so clear to me that my hand couldn't put them down quickly enough, couldn't keep pace with the clarity of my vision. I painted in ecstasy, free as I had never painted before. At the end of the half hour, the foundation of the head was perfect. On Monday, again, I went to the master at 7:30. As I got off the bus at 78th Street and Riverside Drive, I saw him at the center of a little group standing beside that strip of park that drops low to the river, the part we love to call his garden. A forever hallowed spot to us, for there we sometimes walk with him in the evenings. There he takes his daily exercise or escapes from the house to rest and pray. I mean, I don't know how many people speak of Abdu'l-Bahá like this. I just haven't read anybody. We just hear the talks of Abdu'l-Bahá, but we don't see him. Anyway, the people who were with him this morning were Nancy Scholl and Ruth Berkeley, Mr. McNutt and Mr. Mills. And as I hurried to join them, I saw that the master was anointing them from a vial of attar of rose. Can you smell that? I guess you can. Oh, the heavenly perfume, the pale early morning sunshine, and the master all in white glistening in it. No one else takes the sunlight as he does. He is like a polished mirror to the sun. The ecstatic, intoxicating love with which he rubbed our foreheads with his strong fingers, dripping with that essence of 100 roses. Soon we saw Miss Buckton crossing the street toward us, bringing with her a tall young man with a remarkable face, very pure and serene, which seemed somehow familiar to me. The master abruptly left us and met the two in the middle of the drive. Then I saw him open his arms wide and clasp the young man to his breast. We all followed the master to his house, where the young man was introduced to me, and then I knew why his face had seemed so familiar. He was Walter Hampden. I had seen him in the theater. I was in the audience, he on the stage playing the part of the servant in the house, which was Christ. And he played it so intensely with such spiritual fervor that I prayed with all my heart there in the audience that he might someday meet the real servant. And then she has a footnote in the back. She says that after this, Walter Hampden came to the master every day. He never missed a day till our Lord went to Dublin in New Hampshire. So that was the entry for June 5th. Now, on June 12th, Juliet says, yesterday morning, I went up early to the master's house, that house whose door is open at 7:30 and kept wide open till midnight. He had been away and I had not seen him for 3 days. I had brought my pastels thinking he might sit for me, but I found him looking utterly spent. He was in the English basement. Ruth Berkeley and Waliullah Khan was with him, lying back against the sofa cushions. But in spite of his weariness, he looked up with brilliant eyes. What do you want of us, Juliet? He smiled. I had hid my pastels only to be near you. You must excuse me from sitting for you today. I am not able today. I knew that, my lord, as soon as I came in. Then he talked to Ruth and me. He told us we were as babes nursing at the divine breast. But babes, he said, grow daily through the mother's milk. I could not help but weep, for his was the divine breast. Soon he went out alone to the garden, leaving Ruth, Waliullah Khan, and me together. It is wonderful, Ruth said as he went, to see how the world is quickened today in all directions. And to know, I said, that the voice that is quickening, it is the same tender voice that spoke to us just now. And I wept again, for something about the master that morning had utterly melted me. Later he came back. The English basement was crowded by then, and he talked for a long while to the people, but this I could see was pure sacrifice. His vitality seemed gone. At times he could scarcely bring forth the words, yet he gave and gave. When he had finished, he hurriedly left the house and went again to his garden. On the way to the bus, I met him returning alone. He stopped me, put out his hand and took mine with indescribable tenderness, smiling at me. In the hand clasp, the look, even in the tilt of the head, was a love so poignant as to give me pain. Come tomorrow and paint, Juliet, he said. He appeared refreshed, better, but remembering his utter depletion of the morning, I couldn't help answering. If you are well, then I thought I would speak in Persian to amuse him. But instead of saying, if your health is good, I made a mistake and said, Agar shuma khub ast, meaning if you are good. Whereupon I was covered with confusion. I must have amused him. How stupidly we speak to him. Imagine saying if to him. That was even worse than my break in Persian. That night, there was a meeting at the Kinnies, one of those deadly board meetings, but the master came to it. Striding up and down like a king, he spoke to us. In these meetings, he said, we should be in connection with the Supreme Concourse. Between the Supreme Concourse and us, there should be telegraphic communication. One end of the wire in the breast of each one here, and the other in that concourse on high, so that all we might say or do would be inspired. So think about that one. Today, June 12th, I went up early into his house, but not early enough. As I turned into 78th Street from West End Avenue, I saw him a block away, hastening toward his garden, his robes floating out as he walked. Soon he came back to us. Miss Buckton had arrived by that time, and the poor little waif of a girl, a Jewess, she was all in black, and her small pale face was very careworn. I had been in the kitchen with Lua. When I heard the voice of the master, I hurried into the hall, and there I saw them sitting at the window, the poor, sad little girl at the master's right, Alice Buckton at his left. Like a god, he dominated the scene. Sunlight streamed through the window, his white robes and turban shining in it, the strong carving of his face thrown into high relief by masses of shadow. The little Jewish girl was crying. Don't grieve now, don't grieve, he said. He was very, very still, and I think he was calming her. But my brother has been in prison for 3 years, and it wasn't just to put him in prison. It wasn't his fault what he did. He was weak, and other people led him. He has to serve 4 more years. My father and mother are always depressed. My brother-in-law has just died, and he was the only one who supported us. Now we haven't even that. You must trust God, said the master. But the more I trust, the worse things become, she sobbed. You have never trusted. But my mother is all the time reading Psalms. She doesn't deserve to have God abandon her. I read the Psalms myself, the 91st Psalm and the 23rd Psalm. Every night before I go to bed, I pray too. To pray is not to read Psalms. To pray is to trust in God and to be submissive in all things to Him. Be submissive, then things will change for you. Put your parents and your brother in God's hands. Love God's will. Strong ships are not conquered by the sea, they ride the waves. Now be a strong ship, not a battered one. At noon, I took Percy Grant to the master. The master had inquired for him and sent him a message by me, and Percy had responded instantly by himself suggesting this visit. But the master was out when we reached the house, and while we were waiting for him, I mentioned a very interesting thing he had said to Gifford Pinchot. Gifford Pinchot is a famous conservationist. He said, what? The people were rising wave upon wave like a tide, and the capitalists, unless they realized this soon, would be driven out with violence. Also that in the future, the laborer would not work on a wage basis, but for an interest in the concern. This is what the master said will happen in the future. Just then, Lou appeared at the door of the room opposite, went to the stairway, and with her beautiful reverence, leaned across the rail to look down. He's coming. Lua? Yes, Julie. He's coming. He entered the room with both hands extended, and in a voice like a chime from his heart said, "Oh, Dr. Grant, Dr. Grant." Then I slipped out. Sorry, Del Sabidi just came in. Sorry. I have to keep looking at the screen to admit people. When I returned at the master's call, he was signing a photograph for Percy and writing a prayer on it. And now he said, presenting it, "You must give me your photograph. I want your face. I have given you mine. Now you must give me yours. I will pray for you," he added as he bade Percy goodbye. "I will mention you daily in my prayers." The master detained me for a moment. As I rejoined Percy in the car, Baliullah Khan was just going into the house. "Do you see that handsome, distinguished-looking young man?" I said. "That is Baliullah Khan, a descendant of 2 generations of martyrs and the brother of one very young martyr. His grandfather, Sulaiman Khan, was a disciple of the Bab. He was governor of Fars and a great prince, but that didn't save him. He suffered the most ghastly kind of martyrdom, and with such ecstasy that he is one of the best beloved of the Babi martyrs. Just a few years ago, Baliullah's father, Bargha Khan, and his little brother, Ruhullah Barqa, went on a pilgrimage to Akka and had a wonderful visit with the master. But on their way home, they were both arrested and thrown into prison. Then one day, some brutal man came into their cell, one with an axe. Barqa Khan was hacked into pieces alive, and the poor little boy forced to look on at that butchery. When it was over, one of the executioners turned to the child. "I think I will tell the rest in Baliullah's own language. just as he told it to me. The man said to my brother, if you will deny Baha'u'llah, we will take you to the court of the Shah, and honors and riches will be heaped upon you. But my brother answered, I do not want such things. Then the man said to him, if you refuse to deny, we will kill you worse than your father. You may kill me 1,000 times worse, my brother said. Is my life of more value than my father's? To die for Baha'u'llah is my supreme desire. This so angered the executioners that they fell upon Barqa and choked him to death. Barqa was only 12 years old. A day or two ago, I went on. Waliullah Khan asked me, how is the master's portrait progressing? And he added that in a portrait, he thought one must paint the soul. But who can paint the soul of Abdu'l-Bahá, I asked. And I wish you could have seen the fire in his eyes as he drew himself up and said, we can paint it with our blood. The next day, June 13th, as usual, I went very early to the master's house. So early that no one was there, I mean, no visitors. Some of the Persians, of course, were with him, Waliullah Khan, Ahmad, Mirza Ali Akbar. I found them in the lower hall, the English basement. The master was sitting in the big chair by the window. He called me to a seat opposite, then began to speak, smiling. Juliet is absolutely truthful. For this, I love her very much. She conceals nothing from me. It would be useless, my lord, I said, to try to conceal anything from me, to hide nothing. That is true, said the master, raising one hand. Nothing, nothing. Soon he rose, stay here, he told me, and went out with Ahmed. By the time he returned, the crowd had gathered. He gave a few private interviews upstairs, then came down and sitting by the window, talked to all the people. I think the strongest image in my mind is, and will always be, the holy figure of the master sitting in the rays of the sun at that window. The meeting over, a few of us went upstairs to say a healing prayer for Mrs. Hinklesmith. But just before Lua began to chant, the master looked in at the door and called Juliet, and I happily deserted Mrs. Hinklesmith. Bring your things in here and paint, he said, pointing to the library. Oh, this sitting is so wonderful, yet so humanly difficult. We move from room to room, from one kind of light to another. The master has given me 3 half hours each time in a different room, and each time people come in and watch me. But the miraculous thing is that nothing makes any difference. The minute I begin to work, the same rapture takes possession of me. Sometimes someone else looks through my eyes and sees clearly. Someone else works through my hand and with a sort of furious precision. On this 13th of June, after Lua had chanted the prayer for Mrs. Hinklesmith, she and May came into the library, crossed over to where I was sitting, and stood behind me. The master looked up and smiled at May. You have a kind heart, Mrs. Maxwell. Then he turned to Lua. You, Lua, have a tender heart. And what kind of heart have you, Juliet? He laughed. What kind of heart have you? Oh, what kind of heart have I? You know, my lord, I don't know. An emotional heart. He laughed again and rolled his hands one around the other in a sort of tempestuous gesture. You will have a boiling heart, Juliet. Now, he continued, if these 3 hearts were united into one heart, kind, tender, and emotional, what a great heart that would be. The next morning, Thursday, though I went unusually early to the master, he had already left the house. But Lua, Waliullah Khan, and I had a wonderful morning. Waliullah told us so many things. My father, he said, spent much time with the Blessed Beauty. The Blessed Beauty himself taught him. One time when my father was in his room, Baha'u'llah rose and strode back and forth till the very walls seemed to shake. This next part here is kind of emotional. Just put your seatbelts. One time when my father was in his room, Baha'u'llah rose and strode back and forth till the very walls seemed to shake. And he told my father that once in an age, the mighty God sent his soul to earth endowed with the power of the great ether, and that such a soul had all power and was able to do anything. Even this walk of mine, said Baha'u'llah, has an effect in the world. Then he said that His Holiness Jesus Christ had also come with the power of the great ether, but the haughty priesthood of his day thought of him as a poor and lettered youth and believed that if they should crucify him, his teachings would soon be forgotten. Therefore, they did crucify him. But because of His Holiness Jesus possessed the power of the great ether, he could not remain underground. The ethereal power rose and conquered the whole earth. And now, the Blessed Beauty said, look to the Master, for this same power is his. Baha'u'llah added, Balil Khan taught my father much about Akka. Akka, the Master, is one of the titles of Abdu'l-Bahá, and the greatest branch is another, and the greatest mystery of God another. By all this, we call him in Persian, the Blessed Perfection. Baha'u'llah revealed the station of Abdu'l-Bahá to my father, and my father wrote many poems to the Master. Though the Master would scold him and say, you must not write such things about me. But the heart of my father could not keep quiet. This is the one poem he wrote. O dawning point of the beauty of God, I know thee, though thou shouldest thyself in 1,000 veils. I know thee, though thou shouldst assume the tatters of a beggar, still would I know thee. In the late afternoon, I returned with my mother. The Master received us in his own room, which was full of roses and lilies and carnations. Ah, Mrs. Thompson, marhaba, marhaba, welcome. The intonation of that marhaba can never be described. It is a welcome from a heart which is a channel for God's heart. He was very playful with Mama. Are you pleased with Juliet? Please now, Mrs. Thompson. The next time you have to complain of her, come and complain to me and I will beat her. On Friday, June 15th, I was with the Master alone for a while, and I brought up the name of Percy Grant. He didn't understand you the other day, my Lord. He thinks that you teach asceticism, that the spirit and the flesh are two separate things. That is not what I said, the Master replied. I said that the spiritual man and the materialist were two different beings. The spirit is in the flesh. July 5th, 1912, she said, the beloved Master's portrait is finished. He sat for me 6 times, but I really did it in the 3.5 hours he had promised me. For the 6th time, when he paused in his own room on the top floor, I didn't put on a single stroke. I was looking at the portrait, wondering what I could find to do, when he suddenly rose from his chair and said, it is finished. The 5th time he sat, Miss Solly Campbell came in with a drawing she had done from a photograph to ask if he would sign it for her and if she might add a few touches from life. This meant that he had to change his pose, so of course I couldn't paint that day. And the 4th time, the 19th of June, who could have painted then? I had just begun to work Lua in the room, sitting on a couch nearby, when the Master smiled at me, then turning to Lua, said in Persian, this makes me sleepy. What shall I do? Give me 1 second. I have to. Sorry. All right. Now, this is coming up section is again the most important section. Tell the master, Lua, that if he would like to take a nap, I can work while he sleeps. But I found that I could not. What I saw then was too sacred, too formidable. He sat still as a statue, his eyes closed. Infinite peace on that chiseled face, a godlike calm and grandeur in his erect head. Suddenly, with a great flash like lightning, he opened his eyes, and the room seemed to rock like a ship in a storm with the power released. The master was blazing. The veils of glory, the 1,000 veils had shriveled away in that flame, and we were exposed to the glory itself. Lua and I sat shaking and sobbing. Then he spoke to Lua. I caught the words. Munadi Ahd, herald of the covenant. Lua started forward, her hand to her breast. Man, she exclaimed, call one of the Persians. You must understand this. Never shall I forget that moment, the flashing eyes of Abdu'l-Bahá, the reverberations of his voice, the power that still rocked the room, God of lightning and thunder, I thought. I appoint you, Lua, the herald of the covenant, and I am the covenant. Appointed by Baha'u'llah. And no one can refute his word. This is the testament of Baha'u'llah. You will find it in the holy book of Artes. Go forth and proclaim. This is the covenant of God in your midst. A great joy had lifted Lua up. Her eyes were full of light. She looked like a winged angel. Oh, recreate me, she said, that I may do this work for thee. By now, I was sobbing uncontrollably. Julie, too, said Lua, not even in such a moment forgetful of me, wants to be recreated. But the master had shrouded himself. With his veils again, the 1,000 veils, he sat before us now in his dear humanity, very, very human, very simple. Don't cry, Juliet, he said. This is no time for tears. Through tears, you cannot see to paint. I tried hard to hold back my tears and to work, but painting that day was at an end for me. The master smiled lovingly. Juliet is one of my favorites because she speaks the truth to me. See how I love the truth, Juliet? You spoke one word of truth to me, and see how I have praised it. I looked up to smile in answer and in gratitude, then was overwhelmed again by that awful convulsive sobbing. At this, the master began to laugh, and as he laughed and laughed, the strangest thing happened. It was as if at each outburst, he looked completely human without a trace left of his superhuman majesty. Never had I seen him like this before, and I never did afterward. I'm going to tell you something funny, he said, adding in English, a joke. Oh, tell it, we begged, and now I was in a sort of hysteria, laughing and crying at the same time. No, not now, paint. But of course, I couldn't paint. Later, walking up and down, he laughed again. I'm thinking of my joke, he explained. Tell it, we pleaded. No, I cannot, for every time I try to tell it, I laugh so hard I cannot speak. We got down on our knees, able at last to enter into his play, and begged him, please, please tell us. We were laughing on our knees. No, not now, after lunch. But alas, after lunch, he went upstairs to his room, and we never heard the master's joke. Perhaps there wasn't any joke. Perhaps he had just found it necessary after that mighty declaration to bring us down to earth again. He had revealed to us the apex of immortality. He had lifted us up to a height from which we could see it. Now, he, our loving shepherd, had carried us in his own arms back to our little valley and put us where we belonged.
That was great.
Okay. So we're going to take this a break. Give me a break. Just give me 2 minutes, please. I have to.
Yeah, can you fix the light, Dad? It's kind of blinding us. Yeah, it's kind of.
You want to put?
Now
You
I'm
want me
looking
like?
for interrogation by like a Nazi police.
No, it's just fine.
And we look like we're under interrogation. I'm being interrogated. Nothing is good about your setup.
Hi, Violetta.
I'm Abash June. How are you?
I'm great, thank you.
Oh my God, we cried and then we laughed.
I can imagine Abdu'l-Bahá laughing that hard.
You can't?
I can.
Oh, I can too. He had
Yeah.
such an amazing sense of humor. Oh my God.
Right.
He is such an amazing person.
Right.
All of those imprisonments, all of those
All right,
trials, all of those covenant breakers, and still jokes. She's right. There probably wasn't a joke, but that's such a funny story. I love it.
Anyway, Lord Getzinger, the herald of the covenant. All right, you guys. That was quite a moment. In the early morning of June 19th, before the master had called me to paint him, he had spoken to the people in the English basement. On his way down the stairs from his room, he passed Lou and me, where we stood in the third floor hall. We saw and felt as he walked down the upper flight a peculiar power in his step, as though some terrific force had possession of him, a force too strong to be caged in the body, sparking through, almost escaping his body, able to sunder it. I cannot begin to describe that indomitable step, its fearful majesty, or the straight flashing of his eyes. The sublime language of the Old Testament, words such as these: "Who is this that cometh from Bozrah, that treadeth the wine press in his fury?" faintly express what I saw as I watched the master descending those stairs. And smiling, he passes Lou and me. Then he looked back, still unsmiling. "Juliet is one of my favorites," he said. She keeps getting all these praises, and she quotes them all the time. In the afternoon of that same day, he sent Lua down to the waiting people to proclaim the covenant. Then, a little later, followed her and spoke himself on the station of the center of the covenant, but not as he had done to Lua and me. The blazing reality of it he had revealed in his own person to us. To them he spoke guardedly, even deleting afterwards from our notes some of the things he had said. Still later that afternoon, the master had promised to sit for a photograph. I had made the appointment myself with Mrs. Casbier, a very wonderful photographer, to bring the master to her studio, but some people prevented his getting off in time. When they left, he sent for me. "I'm ashamed," he said, while I nearly died at that word, ashamed for him. "But I will go tomorrow. I had planned to leave for Montclair tomorrow, but I will stay until Friday for your sake." "I can't bear, my lord," I said, "to have you delay your trip to the country for this." "No, I wish it," he answered. "I have a confession to make, my lord," I said. "I have been to Dr. Grant's house. It happened in this way. He asked if I would be the bearer of his photograph to you, and would I stop at the rectory for it on my way up to you. Then he invited me to come to breakfast. That invitation I declined, but I could think of no excuse for refusing to stop to the picture. So I did go, but I stayed only 5 or 10 minutes, and his mother was with us all the time." "Good, good," said the master. "Going to his house was not good, but since you have confessed it, Juliet, I'm very much pleased. When I look into your heart," he added, smiling, "I find it just like that mirror. It is so pure." Oh, please understand me. This is in parentheses. When I repeat such things, it is only because they are his words to me. I keep them just to remind myself of something potential he sees in me, which I must grow up to. I'm not reminding myself of his praise, for it really isn't praise but stimulation. If he had been blaming me, I would repeat his blame too. He then spoke of my teaching. Your breath is effective, he said. You are now in the kingdom of Abha with me, as I wished you to be. The next day, June 20th, we went to Mrs. Casbier's, Lua, Mrs. Hinkle, Smith, and I in the car with the master. I shall never forget the master's beauty in the strange cold light of her studio, a green underwater sort of light, in which he looked shining and chiseled like the statue of a god. But the pictures are dark shadows of him. On June 21st, the next day, the master left for Montclair to stay 9 days. I was with him all day till he went. I had lunched with him nearly every day that week. Lua, Mrs. Hinckley, Smith, Waliullah Khan, and I bade him goodbye on the steps of his house. It had nearly killed Lua not to be taken to Montclair with him. 2 days later, she said to me, "Let's go to see him, Julie." "How can we, Lua? He didn't invite us," I answered. "He bade us goodbye for 9 days. "Oh, but you have an excuse. Those proofs of Mrs. Casbier's pictures, you really should show them to him, Julie." And she whirled Georgie, Rastom, and me off to Montclair with her. I'm not supposed to go. We were punished, of course. And our first punishment was that lunch was unusually late, so that instead of arriving after, as we had planned, we arrived just in time for it. And this was agonizing, for there weren't enough seats at the table, and the master wouldn't sit down to eat. One of us had to occupy his chair, while he himself waited on us, carrying all the courses around and around the table. I couldn't get over my mortification. At the end, he came in with the fruit, a glass bowl full of golden peaches. Without turning his head, his face was set straight before him. He sent a piercing glance from the corner of his eye toward Lou and me, such a majestic, stern glance like a sword thrust. After lunch, and this was our second punishment, he banished the three of us, Georgie, Lou, and me, leading us to a small back porch and abandoning us there. But before long, he returned and asked us to take a walk with him. We came back from our walk by way of the front porch. Some people were gathered there, and Lua, Georgie, and I sat down with them while the master went upstairs to rest. He joined us, however, very soon, and striding up and down, began to talk to us. As he walked, his power shook us. His intoxicating exhilaration pouring onto me filled me up with new life. His eyes, those eyes of light which seemed to be always looking into heaven, and when for an instant they glanced toward earth, veer away at once, back to heaven, very brilliantly restless. His whole being was restless with the same strange force I had felt on that memorable day, the 19th of June. It was as though the lightning of his spirit could scarcely endure to be harnessed to the body. He was almost out of the body, but soon he took a seat and rested quietly. I showed him the proofs of the pictures, then spoke of Mrs. Casbier, who had seen him only once when she photographed him. She said she would like to live near you, my lord. He laughed. She doesn't want to live near me. She only wants a good time. Then he grew serious. To live near me, he said, one must have my aims and objects. You remember the rich young man who wanted to live near Christ, and when he learned what it cost to live near him, that it meant to give away all his possessions and take up a cross and follow Christ, then the master laughed. He fled away. This is Mark 10, 17, 22, and Luke 18, 18, 23. Among the disciples of the Bab, he continued, were two, his amanuensis and the firm believer. On the eve of the Bab's martyrdom, the firm believers prayed, oh, let me die with you. The amanuensis said, what shall I do? What shall I do? Mocked the master. What do you want me to do? The disciple died with the Bab, his head on the breast of the Bab, and their bodies were mingled in death. The other died in prison anyway, but think of the difference in their stations. There was another martyr, continued the master after a moment, Mirza Abdullah of Shiraz. Then he told us that Mirza Abdullah had been in the presence of Baha'u'llah only once, but he so loved the blessed beauty that he could not resist following him to Tehran, though Baha'u'llah had commanded him to remain in Shiraz with his old parents. Still, said the master, his tone exultant, he followed. Mirza Abdullah reached Tehran in the midst of that bloodiest of massacres resulting from the attempt on the Shah's life by two fanatical Babis. Baha'u'llah had been cast into a dungeon. There in that foul cellar, he sat weighted down by the devil's chain, 11 disciples sitting with him, bound by the same chain. In it were set iron collars which were fastened around the neck by iron pins. Every day a disciple was slaughtered and none knew when his turn would come. The first intimation he had of his immediate death was when the jailer took out the iron pin from his collar. Mirza Abdullah entered Tehran and inquired of the guard at the gate where Baha'u'llah resided. We will take you to him, said the guard, and some men took Abdullah to the dungeon and chained him to Baha'u'llah. So the master said, he found his beloved again. One day the jailer came in the dungeon and took out the pin from Mirza Abdullah's collar. Then, said the master, Mirza Abdullah stepped joyfully forward. First he kissed the feet of the Blessed Beauty, and then the master's whole aspect suddenly changed. It was as though the spirit of the martyr had entered into him, with that godlike head erect, snapping his fingers high in the air, beating out a drum-like rhythm with his foot till we could hardly endure the vibrations set up. He triumphantly sung the martyr's song. I have come again, by way of Shiraz, I have come again. With the wine cup in my hand, such is the madness of love. And thus ended Abdu'l-Bahá, singing and dancing. He went to his death, and 100 executioners fell on him, and later his parents came to Baha'u'llah, praising God that their son had given his life in the path of God. This was what the cause meant then. This was what it meant to live near him. Another realm opened to me, the realm of divine tragedy. The master sank back into his chair, tears swelled in my eyes, blurring my everything. When they cleared, I saw a still stranger look on his face. His eyes were unmistakably fixed on the invisible. They were filled with delight and as brilliant as jewels. A smile of exultation played on his lips. So low that it sounded like an echo, he hummed the martyr's song. See, he exclaimed, the effect that the death of a martyr has in the world. It has changed my condition. After a moment's silence, he asked, what is it, Juliet? You're pondering so deeply. I was thinking, my Lord, of the look on your face when you said your condition had been changed, and that I had seen a flash of the joy of God when someone dies happily for his cause. There was one name, the master answered, that always brought joy to the face of Baha'u'llah. His expression would change at the mention of it. That name was Mary of Magdala. Almost a week passed before we saw our Lord again. Then on the 29th of June, we met him at the West Englewood. He was giving a feast for all the believers in the grounds around Roy William's house for the Feast of Unity, he called it. I went with dear Sylvia Gannett. We walked from the little station past the grove where the tables were set, a grove of tall pine trees, and on the house in which he whose presence filled our eyes with light and without whom our days had been very dim and lifeless. There he was again, sitting in a corner of the porch. I sped across the lawn, forgetting Sylvia, forgetting everything. He looked down at me with grave eyes, and I saw fathomless welcome in them. For a while, we sat with him on the porch. Then he led us down into the grove. There he seated himself on the ground at the foot of the pine tree and called two believers to his right and left. One was Mrs. Krog, in very elegant clothes, the other a poor and shabby old woman. But both faces, the wrinkled one and the smooth, pretty one, were beautiful with the same radiance. I shall never forget that old woman's shining blue eyes. The great words he spoke to us then have been preserved. You have to see it in Promulgation Universal Peace, page 213. I will not repeat them. Besides, I remember them too imperfectly. But he said one thing which woke my whole being. This is a new day, a new hour. By the time he had finished, the feast was ready, but just as it was announced, a storm blew up, a strange, sudden storm without warning. There was a tremendous crash of thunder. Through the treetops, we could see black clouds boiling up and big drops of rain splashed on the tables. The master rose calmly and, followed by the Persians, walked out of the road, then to the end of it, where there's a crossroad. A single chair had been left there, and as I watched from a distance, I saw the master take it and sit down while the Persians ranged themselves behind him. I saw him lift his face to the sky. He had gone a long way from the house. Thunder still crashed, and the clouds rolled frighteningly low, but he continued to sit perfectly motionless, that sacred, powerful face upturned to the sky. Then came a strong, rushing wind. The clouds began to race away. Blue patches appeared above, and the sun shone out. And then the master rose and walked back into the grove. This I witnessed. Later, as we sat at the tables, 250 of us, he anointed us all with attar of rose. I was not at the table, but sitting under a tree with Marjorie Morton and Sylvia. The master swept towards us in his long white robes, forever the divine shepherd. Friends here, he smiled, friends. In his voice was a thrilling joy. With a look that shook my heart, so full was it with the musk of his love, he rubbed my face hard with the attar of rose. He passed among all the tables with his little vial of perfume, which Grace Robarts swears was almost as full at the end as at the beginning, anointing the forehead of everyone there, touching and caressing all of our blind faces with his tingling fingers. Then he disappeared for hours. Lua, too, went off alone, an exceedingly naughty purpose in her mind. The master had just told her that she must leave very soon for California. So now she deliberately walked in poison ivy, walked back and forth till her feet were thoroughly poisoned. Now, Julie, she said, when the deed was done, he can't send me to California. To me, the most beautiful scene of all came later when the master returned to us after dark. About 50 or 60 people had lingered, unable to tear themselves from him. The master sat in a chair on the top step of the porch, some of us surrounding him, dear guilty Lua with her poisoned feet, May, Sylvia, Marjorie, and I, and the young colored man, Neval Thomas. Below us, all over the lawn, on each side of the path, sat the others. The light summer skirts of the women spread out on the grass, tapers in their hands to keep off mosquitoes. In the dark, in their filmy dresses, they looked like great moths, and the burning tips of the tapers, they waved like fireflies darting about. Then the master spoke again to us. I was standing behind him, close to him, and before he began, he turned and gave me a long, profound look. His talk of that night has been recorded. It was a resounding call to us to arise from the tomb of self in this day of the great resurrection and unite around him to vivify the world. Before he had finished, he rose from his chair and started down the path, still talking, passing between the dim figures on the grass with the lighted tapers, so talking till he reached the road where he turned and we could no longer see him. Even then his words floated back to us, the liquid Persian, Ali Khuli Khan's beautiful quivering translation, like the sound of a violin string. Peace be with you. This was the last we heard. I will pray for you. Oh, that voice that came back out of his invisibility when he had passed beyond our sight, may always remember and hear the voice. Well, We have 10 more minutes, and then the hour will be gone. That night, our beloved Lord returned to New York. The next morning, early, I flew up to see him, but he sent me at once to Lua, who was staying with Georgie Ralston in a hotel nearby. She was in bed, her feet terribly swollen from the poison ivy. Look at me, Julie, she said. Look at my feet. Oh, please go right back to the master and tell him about them and say, how can Lua travel now? I did it. Returned to the master's house, found him in his room, and put Lua's question to him. He laughed, then crossed the room to a table on which stood a bowl of fruit, and selecting an apple and a pomegranate, gave them to me. Take these to Lua, he said. Tell her to eat them, and she will be cured. Spend the day with her, Juliet. Oh, precious Lua, strange mixture of disobedience and obedience, and all from love. I shall never forget her seizing first the apple, then the pomegranate, and gravely chewing them all the way through till not even a pomegranate seed was left, thoroughly eating her cure, which was certain to send her to California. In the late afternoon, we were happily surprised by a visit from the master himself. He drew back the sheet and looked at Lua's feet, which by that time were beautifully slim. Then he burst out laughing. See, he said, I have cured Lua with an apple and a pomegranate. But Lua revolted again. There was one more thing she could try, and she tried it. The master had asked me to paint her portrait, and I had already had one sitting. The following day at the master's house, she drew me aside. Please, Julie, do something else for me. Go to the master now and say, if Lua is in California, how can I paint her? I went straight to his room with Waliullah Khan to translate. My lord, I said, you have commanded me to paint Lua. If she's in California and I hear, how can I do it? The portrait is begun. How can I finish it? And again, the master burst out laughing, for this, of course, was too transparent. In a year, he said, Lua will join me in Egypt. She will stay in New York a few days on her way to me, and you can paint her then, Juliet. So poor Lua had to go to California. There was no way out for her. So we never dreamed how soon he would be with her in Egypt. Abdu'l-Bahá journeyed to California, arriving in San Francisco on October 1st, 1912, and Lua made the arrangements for his visit in California. And as you know, we talked about that before. We have to talk about Lua Getzinger another time. Lua died in, I told you that in one of the first Zooms. Lua died in Egypt. I told you my father did the monument for both Lua Getzinger and Mirza Abul Fadl in an Egyptian cemetery. I don't know. It was a design approved by the Guardian back when in the 1920s, 1930s. Okay, dear friends. Thus ends our Zoom for today. It's 55 minutes. We're not finished with Juliet. I mean, if you're bored, I'm sorry. I just, I could be doing this Zoom with that book for the next 10 years, non-stop.
You should.
Non-stop, and then new people come in and they will just listen to the words, and then if they want to add things to it and find words of Abdu'l-Bahá or words of this, words of that, to be able to. But I mean, we're very lucky to have this. Really,
we are too.
I love that. I love that book. I love Juliet Thompson. This is 3 years of her life. Remember, I mean, she was a pioneer in Mexico. I mean, it's a long story.